The forest on planet Vexoria was different at night, Lyra noticed as her breathing quickened. The glowing fungi that decorated the towering trees cast eerie shadows, and the 3 moons overhead bathed everything in pale blue light. She was lost, separated from her research team during what was supposed to be a routine expedition. Lyra belonged to the Nalari, a species known throughout the galaxy for their intelligence and advanced technology, but terrible physical fragility. Her violet skin reflected the moonlight as she pressed herself against a massive tree trunk. Her 6-fingered hands trembled as she heard the low growl of a predator nearby. The creature hunting her was a Krexar beast, a 6-legged predator with rows of razor teeth and an exceptional sense of smell. No Nalari had ever survived an encounter with one. Lyra knew the statistics all too well. She closed her eyes, waiting for the beast to eat her. The sound of the creature crashing through the underbrush grew louder. She could smell its musky odor as it approached. The end was near. A sudden loud crack split the air, followed by a blinding flash of light. Lyra opened her eyes to see the Krexar beast retreating with an anguished howl. Standing between her and the predator was a figure unlike any she had seen before. The being was tall with pale skin and only 2 arms. Her species had never encountered such a creature before. The stranger held some kind of weapon that emitted light and spoke in a language. The universal translator in Lyra's ear took a moment to decipher. "My name is Kate. I saw your ship go down a few miles from my camp. Follow me if you want to live," the being said, extending a hand. Lyra hesitated. The teachings of her elders warned against trusting unknown species, but the alternative was certain death. She reached out her 6-fingered hand and took Kate's 5-fingered one. The human, as Kate explained herself to be, led Lyra through the forest with surprising confidence. Their species had only been traveling the stars for a few cycles, yet they moved with remarkable adaptation to alien environments. "I crashed here 3 months ago," Kate explained as they walked. "My distress beacon hasn't been answered. Yet I was beginning to think this planet was uninhabited until I saw your ship." Lyra's translator converted her melodic language to something Kate could understand. "We were studying the fungal networks on this world. Our ship malfunctioned during atmospheric entry. The others, are they?" Kate shook her head. "I only saw your pod come down. Judging by the trajectory, the main vessel likely crashed on the northern continent." Hope flickered in Lyra's heart. Her people might still be alive. The human shelter was primitive by Nalari standards, a simple structure built from local materials and salvage from her ship. But it was secure, warm, and protected from the predators of Vexoria as night fell completely. Kate showed Lyra where she could rest. The human remained vigilant, keeping watch with her strange weapon nearby. Lyra studied her savior with scientific curiosity. Humans were not well documented in Nalari databases. Their world was considered primitive, their technology basic, and their social structures chaotic. Yet here was this human surviving alone on one of the most dangerous planets in the charted galaxy. "Why did you help me?" Lyra asked Kate through her translator. Any logical being would prioritize their own survival. Kate looked surprised by the question. "Because you needed help," she said, as if it were the most obvious thing in the universe. "Where I come from, we don't leave people to die." This concept was foreign to Nalari culture, where decisions were made based on mathematical probability and resource optimization. The next morning, Kate took Lyra to retrieve items from her escape pod. The journey was dangerous, but the human moved with incredible awareness, guiding them around predator territories and toxic plant clusters. When they reached the crashed pod, Kate helped Lyra salvage her research data and medical supplies. The human studied the Nalari technology with open fascination. "This is amazing," she said, examining a small device that could analyze molecular structures. "Your people must be incredible engineers." "We are," Lyra confirmed. "Our civilization has focused on technological advancement for 20,000 years. We have eliminated physical labor disease and most forms of discomfort." Kate laughed softly. "That explains why you're not built for hiking through alien jungles." Lyra was not offended by the observation. It was factually correct. Nalari evolved as thinkers, not survivors. Their bodies were designed for intellectual work, fragile but housing extraordinary brains. As they made their way back to the shelter, Kate stopped, suddenly crouching down and signaling Lyra to do the same. The human pointed to a clearing ahead where a group of Krexar beasts were feeding on some kind of large herbivore. The predators Kate had saved her from the night before. Lyra felt terror freeze her limbs, but Kate remained calm. "We go around," she whispered. "Stay close and follow exactly in my footsteps." The detour added hours to their journey, but Kate never complained or showed impatience. When Lyra needed to rest, the human stood guard. When food was required, Kate found edible plants and caught small creatures, preparing them in ways that Lyra's system could tolerate. By the time they returned to the shelter, Lyra had begun to understand something about humans. They were not merely surviving, they were adapting. The distinction was significant. That evening, as they ate a meal Kate had prepared, Lyra asked more questions about Earth and humans. The human described a world of contrasts, breathtaking beauty and terrible destruction, technological marvels and environmental mistakes, a species that could create art and music of haunting beauty, while also waging devastating wars. "We are complicated," Kate admitted with a small smile. "But I like to think our better nature usually wins out." Lyra considered this. The Nalari had long ago engineered conflict out of their society. They made decisions based on logic, not emotion. But looking at Kate, she wondered if something had been lost in that evolution. Something vital and important that this human possessed in abundance. Days passed on Vexoria, and Lyra began to adapt to life on the dangerous planet. Kate was a patient teacher, showing her how to recognize safe paths through the forest, how to listen for approaching predators, and how to use simple tools crafted from materials around them. The human had established a daily routine, waking before the first sun rose to check traps and gather water. Lyra joined these morning excursions, learning to move quietly through the underbrush. The violet markings on her skin, that had once served decorative purposes on her homeworld, now helped her blend with the purple flora of Vexoria. One morning Kate taught Lyra how to fish in a nearby stream. The human had fashioned a spear from a straight branch, sharpened at one, and Lyra watched in amazement as Kate stood perfectly still in the shallow water, before striking with incredible speed, impaling a large silver fish. "Your turn," Kate said, offering the spear to Lyra. Nalari never hunted. The very idea seemed primitive, barbaric even. But Lyra took the spear, her 6 fingers wrapping awkwardly around the shaft. She waded into the stream as Kate had done and tried to stand still. The cold water made her shiver, and when a fish swam near, she jabbed clumsily, missing. By a considerable margin, Kate did not laugh or show frustration. "It took me weeks to catch my first fish," she admitted. "Try again. Keep your weight centered and wait for the fish to stay still." Lyra tried again and again. Each attempt was a failure, but Kate remained encouraging. Finally, near midday, Lyra's spear found its target. The sensation of the spear connecting with living flesh was shocking and disturbing, but also strangely satisfying. "I did it," Lyra said with surprise, holding up the spear. With the fish still wriggling at its end, Kate smiled with genuine pride. "You sure did. Now you won't starve if something happens to me." The comment sent an unexpected wave of distress through Lyra. The thought of being alone on this planet without Kate was terrifying. But it was more than that. Lyra realized she had come to value the human's company, not just for survival, but for companionship. That evening, as they ate the fish Lyra had caught, Kate worked on repairing her communication device. The key. Human had explained that it was designed to send signals across vast distances, but several key components had been damaged in her crash. "My people know your species exists," Kate said, as she carefully connected wires, "but we've never had formal contact. Our scientists detected your ships passing through our solar system, but your people never responded to our signals." Lyra nodded. The Nalari Council classified humans as a primitive species of no significant interest. "When we detect developing worlds, we observe but do not interfere. It is our primary directive." Kate looked up from her work. "So you're telling me your people have been watching Earth like we're some kind of nature documentary?" The comparison made Lyra uncomfortable. There was truth in it. The Nalari viewed less advanced species as subjects for study, not potential equals. They cataloged worlds, ranked them by technological achievement, and decided which were worthy of contact. Earth had failed to meet the threshold. I am beginning to think that assessment was flawed. Lyra admitted. You have survived here for 3 months alone. That indicates capabilities our analysis did not account for. Kate laughed. Well, thanks for the vote of confidence. I think your people might be surprised by what humans can do when pushed into a corner. The next day they began a longer expedition. Kate had been mapping the surrounding area and believed she had located a higher elevation that might allow her communication device to broadcast more. Effectively, the journey would take several days, requiring them to camp in the wilderness. For the first time since her crash, Lyra found herself excited rather than fearful. She packed supplies, following Kate's instructions carefully. She noticed her hands no longer trembled when she heard distant animal calls. Her body was changing, becoming stronger. Her senses more attuned to the environment. They traveled through valleys of giant mushrooms and across fields of grass that changed color with the movement of the suns. Each night they made camp, Kate showing Lyra how to construct a simple shelter and build a fire. The humans seemed pleased with Lyra's progress. On the 3rd day they encountered another Krexar beast. This time it was injured, one of its 6 legs caught in what appeared to be a trap similar to those Kate set for smaller creatures. The predator thrashed and howled in pain when it saw them. We should go around, Lyra said, backing away. It can't chase us. Kate studied the creature, with a frown. That trap isn't one of mine. Something else is hunting on this planet. The revelation was disturbing. They had seen no evidence of other intelligent life during their weeks together. Kate approached the trap cautiously, despite Lyra's protests. The human examined the mechanism without getting too close to the raging predator. This is advanced technology. She said the metal isn't from this planet. Someone else crashed here. Or worse, they came on purpose. They gave the trapped Krexar a wide berth, continuing their journey, but now with added caution. Kate seemed troubled, checking their back trail frequently and keeping her weapon closer than usual. That night as they made camp, the human insisted on additional precautions, hiding their fire beneath an overhang and setting alarms around their perimeter. I don't understand, Lyra said as they huddled in their shelter. Who would come to this planet voluntarily? Hunters, Kate replied. People who enjoy the challenge of dangerous prey. Some humans are like that too, though hunting endangered species is illegal on Earth. I wonder if whoever set that trap is hunting the local wildlife or looking for something else. Looking for what, Lyra asked. Kate gave her a meaningful look. Your ship wasn't the only one to crash here. Maybe someone is salvaging technology, or maybe they heard your distress signal just like I did. The implication was clear. Not all spacefaring species were as peaceful as the Nalari. Lyra's people had encountered races that viewed others as resources to be exploited or conquered. The Nalari had always relied on their superior technology and careful diplomacy to avoid conflict. But here on Vexoria, they had neither. Lyra thought about the research data she had salvaged. From her pod, it contained valuable information about Nalari biology and technology. If it fell into the wrong hands, we need to be careful, Kate said, as if reading her thoughts. Tomorrow we reach the high point and try to contact your people. Then, we get off this planet before we meet whatever set that trap. Morning came with heavy mist rolling through the forest. Kate woke Lyra before dawn, her expression serious. They packed their camp in silence and continued toward the mountain Kate had identified. The human moved differently now. Lyra noticed her steps were more cautious, her eyes constantly scanning their surroundings. They reached the base of the mountain by midday. A steep path wound upward through rocky terrain, with less vegetation than the forest. This was both good and bad, Lyra realized. Fewer plants meant fewer places for predators to hide, but also less cover for them. As they began their ascent, Kate suddenly froze, grabbing Lyra's arm and pulling her behind a large boulder. The human pointed to something on the path ahead. It was small and metallic, gleaming in the sunlight. Another trap, Kate whispered, kneeling to examine it without touching it. This one is designed for something walking on 2 legs. Not a Krexar. Lyra felt a chill that had nothing to do with the mountain air. Whatever set these traps was hunting intelligent life. Kate carefully marked the location of the trap and led them around it. They found 3 more similar devices on their way up the mountain. Each time Kate helped Lyra avoid them. The humans seemed to have an instinct for where the dangers would be placed. By late afternoon, they reached a plateau near the top. The view was extraordinary. From this height they could see for miles in every direction. The forest stretched out below them like a green ocean with patches of purple and blue fungi. Creating swirling patterns, Kate set up her communication device, connecting it to parts Lyra had salvaged from her escape pod. This should boost the signal enough to reach orbit. Kate explained, if your people are searching for you, they should be able to detect it. Lyra helped connect the power source, a small energy cell from her survival kit. The device hummed to life, emitting a steady pulsing light. Kate programmed it to broadcast on Nalari frequencies, including the emergency channel. All Nalari ships monitored. Now we wait, Kate said, settling beside the device. The signal will continue for 48 hours, or until the power cell depletes. They made camp on the plateau, finding shelter. In a small cave nearby, Kate insisted they keep no fire despite the cold of the higher elevation. The human shared thermal blankets from her survival supplies, and they huddled together for warmth. Lyra found the closeness strange at first. Nalari rarely engaged in physical contact outside of necessary medical procedures. But the warmth of the human was comforting, and soon Lyra relaxed. Tell me about your home, Kate said softly in the darkness. Lyra described the crystal cities of Nalari Prime, the perfect climate controlled by atmospheric processors, the automated systems that provided for every need, the sophisticated educational networks that allowed Nalari to access all knowledge instantly. It sounds perfect, Kate remarked. Too perfect. Almost like living in a museum. Lyra had never considered it that way. The Nalari valued order, efficiency, and intellectual advancement above all else. Their society eliminated chance, disorder, and the unpredictability of nature. But listening to herself, describe it through Kate's ears, she understood what the human meant. What about Earth? Lyra asked. What is your home like? Kate described a world of extremes, crowded cities and vast wilderness, technological marvels in areas with no electricity or running water, great kindness and terrible cruelty. Earth sounded chaotic, dangerous and fascinating. The most beautiful place I ever saw was a valley in a region called Montana. Kate said the mountains were covered with snow even in summer, and there was a lake so clear you could see straight to the bottom. In the morning, the mist rises off the water and deer come down to drink. I used to camp there alone for weeks at a time. Why? Lyra asked, confused. The Nalari never sought solitude to remind myself how small I am, Kate replied. How the world existed long before humans and will continue long after us. It puts things in perspective. Lyra considered this. The Nalari had conquered nature rather than finding a place within it. They saw themselves as masters of their environment, not part of it. A sudden beeping from the communication device interrupted their conversation. Kate moved quickly, checking the display. Something is responding to our signal, she said. The frequency matches. Nalari patterns. Joy surged through Lyra. Her people had found them. But Kate did not seem as pleased. The signal is coming from the northern continent, she said, where your main ship would have crashed. But it's not moving. It's stationary. That could mean the ship is disabled. Lyra suggested my people would establish a base camp while making repairs. Maybe, Kate said, but something doesn't feel right. This response came too quickly, almost like someone was waiting for us to broadcast. Before Lyra could respond, a different alarm sounded, this one from the perimeter sensors Kate had set around their camp. The human grabbed her weapon, moving to the cave entrance with practiced silence. Someone is coming, Kate whispered. 304. Heat signatures. Moving up the path we used. Lyra joined Kate at the entrance, straining to see. In the gathering darkness, the moons had not yet risen, making visibility poor, even for her enhanced vision. Could it be my people? Lyra asked hopefully. Kate shook her head. The movement pattern is wrong. Your people would send a ship, not climb a mountain on foot. Whoever is coming knows these mountains and they know exactly where we are. The realization struck Lyra with sudden clarity. The communication device had been a mistake. It had not only signaled to potential rescuers but to whoever had set the traps. They had broadcast their location to unknown hunters. "We need to move," Kate said, gathering their essential supplies and disabling the communication device. "Leave the rest? But my people?" Lyra protested. "If they were really responding, they will keep searching," Kate said. "But right now we need to focus on staying alive. Those heat signatures are moving too fast for normal hiking. They know this terrain. They slipped out of the cave keeping low and, moving across the plateau away from the approaching figures, Kate led them to a narrow path that descended the opposite side of the mountain from where they had climbed. It was steeper, more treacherous, but offered concealment. As they began their descent, the first moon rose, casting pale light across the landscape. Behind them, Lyra could hear voices calling out in a language her translator could not decipher. Kate pulled her into a crevice as a beam of artificial light swept across the path. "Above them, they're tracking us," Kate whispered. "They have technology similar to mine, but more advanced. We can't outrun them. We need to outsmart them." Lyra felt fear threatening to overwhelm her logical mind, but she forced herself to think like Kate. What would the human do? What would a survivor do? The descent was treacherous in the darkness. Kate moved with surprising grace, helping Lyra navigate the difficult terrain. They could hear their pursuers above calling to each other occasionally. The beams of their lights would sweep nearby, forcing them to freeze and press against the rocky mountainside. "I recognize that language," Kate whispered as they huddled behind a large boulder. "Those are Orion hunters. I encountered their kind once before near my home system. They hunt rare species, collect trophies." The information sent a chill through Lyra and Alari. Were rare indeed outside their own systems. Few had ever been captured and studied by other races. Their biology was considered unique in the galaxy. "They might be hunting me," Lyra realized. "Or technology from my ship." Kate nodded grimly. "Either way, we need to get you back to your people. Those hunters won't give up easily once they've chosen a prey." They continued downward, finding a small stream that cut through the mountain. Kate led them into the water. "The water will mask our scent and thermal signatures," she explained. "We follow it down, then find a place to hide until daylight." The water was painfully cold, but Lyra did not complain. She had learned from Kate that discomfort was temporary. Survival was what mattered. They waited downstream for nearly an hour before Kate found what she was looking for, a dense patch of vegetation growing near the water. "We rest here," the human said, helping Lyra into the sheltered area. "The hunters will keep searching through the night, but they'll be following a cold trail." Now Kate did not finish her sentence. A sound from nearby caught her attention. She pushed Lyra deeper into the vegetation and raised her weapon. The sound came again, closer. This time a low mechanical hum, not biological, Kate mouthed silently. "A drone." The small flying machine appeared above the stream, hovering silently, its sensors scanning the water and surrounding area. Kate remained perfectly still, signaling Lyra to do the same. The drone moved methodically back and forth using some kind of advanced detection system. "It will find our heat signatures eventually," Kate whispered. "I need to disable it." "Wait here." Before Lyra could protest, Kate slipped away, moving through the vegetation with barely a sound. The human circled behind the drone, picking up a stone from the streambed. In one fluid motion, Kate threw the stone, hitting the drone with remarkable accuracy. The machine sputtered, its lights flickering, but it did not fall. Instead, it emitted a high-pitched tone clearly. An alarm. Kate didn't hesitate. She rushed forward, leaping from the bank to grab the drone in midair. Both crashed into the stream with a splash, Kate wrestling with the machine underwater for several seconds before rising with the now dark and silent drone in her hands. "They know where we are now," Kate said, breathing heavily. "We need to move fast." They abandoned stealth for speed, Kate leading them away from the stream and into a rocky area with less vegetation. The terrain here was broken, with many small ravines and gullies offering multiple paths. They could hear shouts behind them. The hunters had received the drone's alarm and were closing in. Lyra was tiring, her body not designed for this kind of exertion, but fear gave her strength. Kate noticed her struggle and slowed slightly. Just a little further, the human encouraged. There are caves in this region. I noticed them on our way up. We can hide there. They reached the cave system. As the second moon rose, Kate chose a small opening, partially hidden by fallen rocks. They squeezed inside, finding a narrow tunnel that widened into a larger chamber. The air was damp, but not unpleasant. The cave seemed unoccupied by any of the planets. Dangerous wildlife. Kate used a small light from her pack to examine their surroundings. This goes deeper, she said, pointing to a tunnel at the back of the chamber. These caves might connect to a larger system. If we're lucky, it could lead us away from the hunter's luck. Lyra repeated the unfamiliar concept. The Nalari did not believe in luck, only probability and careful planning. Kate smiled. Sometimes luck is just another word for paying attention to opportunities. She checked her weapon, and there, remaining supplies. We have enough water for 2 days, food for 1. We need to find a way to contact your people without alerting. The hunter's Lyra removed her personal communicator from her pocket. The device was damaged, but some functions remained operational. The short-range emergency beacon still worked, but it had a limited range. Could we modify this? Lyra asked to send a directional signal. One the hunters won't detect. Kate examined the device thoughtfully. This technology is more advanced than anything I've worked with, but the principles should be similar. If we could focus the signal like a laser targeting a specific point in the sky, Lyra understood what Kate was suggesting. They could use the communicator to send a narrow beam signal directly upward. Any Nalari ships in orbit would detect it, but the signal would be difficult for ground-based sensors. To intercept, I can reconfigure the transmission matrix. Lyra said, her technical knowledge resurfacing. But I need tools. Kate emptied her pockets, producing a small multi-tool and several improvised implements she had fashioned during her months on the planet. They were crude by Nalari standards, but functional. Lyra began working on the communicator while Kate kept watch at the cave entrance. Outside, they could hear the hunters moving through the area, methodically searching every potential hiding place. Their voices were closer now, their lights occasionally visible through the narrow cave opening. Work quickly, Kate whispered. They know we're in this area. It's only a matter of time before they find this cave. Lyra focused on the delicate circuitry, her 6-fingered hands steady. Despite the danger, the Nalari were engineers by nature. This was what her people excelled at: modifying technology, adapting systems, finding solutions. She felt a strange calm descend as she worked. Kate suddenly tensed. They stopped searching, she whispered. They know where we are. Lyra looked up from her work. How could they? Kate pointed to the floor of the cave. Small puddles had formed from the water dripping off their clothes after wading through the stream. In the still air of the cave, the moisture created a detectable temperature difference. They're using thermal imaging, Kate realized. Something more advanced than my equipment can detect. They heard movement at the cave entrance, rocks being shifted carefully. Kate motioned Lyra toward the back tunnel. Is the communicator ready? Kate asked, almost. Lyra said, a few more adjustments. Finish it in the tunnel, Kate ordered. I'll hold them off. Lyra wanted to protest, but she knew the human was right. Kate had a better chance of delaying the hunters. She took the partially modified communicator and moved deeper into the cave. As she worked on the final adjustments, she heard the sounds of struggle from the main chamber. A weapon discharged the flash of light, briefly illuminating the tunnel, followed by shouts in the strange language. Lyra worked faster. Her fingers moved with precision, connecting circuits, bypassing damaged components, focusing the transmission array to create a narrow beam signal. Finally, the device hummed to life, indicating it was operational. She activated the emergency beacon, setting it to transmit directly upward through the mountain stone. The signal would be weakened, but if any Nalari ships were in orbit, they would detect the distinctive pattern. A sound behind her made Lyra turn. Kate appeared in the tunnel, limping slightly, but still moving under her own power. Weren't expecting resistance, the human said with a grim smile. I took down 2, but there are more coming. We need to go deeper. Is the communicator working? Lyra asked. Kate glanced at the device. Yes, I can see the transmission indicator. The signal is going out. Now we just need to stay alive long enough for your people to find us. They moved deeper into the cave system, the tunnel narrowing in places before opening into larger chambers. Some passages showed signs of water erosion, indicating the caves had been formed by ancient rivers. They chose paths that led upward whenever possible, hoping to get closer to the surface where the signal would be stronger. After what seemed like hours of navigating the labyrinth, they found a chamber with a small opening in the ceiling. Moonlight streamed through, illuminating the space. Kate positioned the communicator directly beneath the opening, maximizing signal strength. Now we wait, Kate said, settling against the wall to rest. Her leg was injured. Lyra noticed a burn mark on her thigh where one of the hunter's weapons had struck her. Let me help, Lyra said, examining the wound. The burn was painful but not life-threatening. She used supplies from their packs to clean and dress the injury. You saved my life again, Lyra said as she worked. Kate did not respond immediately, her eyes on the cave entrance listening for sounds of pursuit. What I don't understand, the human finally said, is why these hunters are so determined. They must have easier prey on this planet. Why chase us through caves? Lyra considered the question. It was logical. The risk seemed disproportionate to the reward unless the realization struck her with sudden clarity. It's not me they want, she said. It's you. Kate looked surprised. That's ridiculous. Why would they want me? Humans aren't rare, but survivors are. Lyra explained. You survived alone on one of the most dangerous planets in the galaxy for months. Most species would have perished within days. The hunters must have been tracking you, monitoring your progress. They want you because you proved yourself worthy. Prey. The human considered this, her expression darkening. That makes a sick kind of sense. Trophy hunters want the most challenging game. Noise from one of the tunnels interrupted their conversation. The hunters had found their trail. Kate moved to position herself between Lyra and the sound, her weapon ready. The communicator suddenly beeped, indicating it had received a response signal. Lyra checked the display. My people, Lyra said with excitement. They received our signal. A rescue ship is approaching. Kate nodded grimly. Can they locate us? Precisely. Lyra examined the readout. They have a general location within 2 kilometers. They request we activate the emergency locator for final approach. Kate glanced toward the tunnel where the sounds of their pursuers grew louder. We activate that and the hunters will find us too. It's a race now. The human made a quick decision. Give me the locator. She took the small device from Lyra. I have an idea. These hunters want a worthy prey. I'll give them one. No. Lyra protested, understanding Kate's intention. You can't. The human smiled, that same confident smile that had reassured Lyra so many times during their weeks together. Your people will be here soon. Keep the communicator signal active. It'll lead the hunters away. Draw them off with the locator, but you'll die. Lyra said, her voice rising with emotion. Kate shrugged. Not planning on it, but even if I do, you'll live. That's what matters. Before Lyra could argue further, Kate pressed the emergency locator, activating its signal. The device would broadcast Lyra's biological signature on all frequencies, making it impossible to miss, but also impossible to hide. The Nalari way would be logical, Kate said. Find the solution with the highest probability of success. But sometimes the human way is better. Sometimes you have to take chances. Trust me. With that, Kate slipped into one of the smaller tunnels, taking the active locator with her. Lyra wanted to follow but understood the strategy. Kate would lead the hunters away from her position, giving the Nalari rescue team time to reach her. Lyra waited, listening to the sounds of pursuit grow, distant as the hunters followed Kate's trail. She monitored the communicator, watching as the rescue ship's signal grew stronger. They were close, perhaps only minutes away, but would they arrive in time to help Kate? The minutes stretched into an hour. The sounds of pursuit had faded entirely, replaced by an eerie silence. Lyra considered her options. She could remain safely hidden, waiting for rescue, or she could follow Kate, trying to help the human who had saved her life repeatedly. The Nalari way would be to wait. The logical choice, the safe choice, But during her time with Kate, Lyra had learned there was more to survival than logic. There was courage, loyalty, friendship. She made her decision, grabbing the communicator and heading into the tunnel Kate had used. The human had taught her how to track, how to move quietly, how to survive. Lyra would use those lessons now. She followed the subtle signs of Kate's passage, a disturbed stone, a smudge on the wall, places where the dust had been disturbed by footprints. The tunnel sloped upward, growing narrower in places before eventually opening onto a ledge on the mountainside. The night was ending, the first sun beginning to rise, casting long shadows across the landscape. From her position, Lyra could see movement in a clearing below. Kate running, dodging behind rocks as energy weapons fired at her. The human was leading the hunters in a circular pattern, keeping them occupied but not allowing them to corner her. It was a brilliant strategy, but Kate was tiring her injured legs, slowing her down. In the distance, Lyra saw something else. A small craft descending rapidly, its design unmistakably Nalari. The rescue team had arrived, but they were landing too far away. They would not reach Kate in time. Without conscious thought, Lyra found herself moving, descending the mountain as quickly as she could toward the clearing. She no longer felt fear or uncertainty, only determination. Kate had taught her that survival sometimes meant taking risks. She would not abandon her friend. The hunters had not noticed her approach, focused entirely on their prey. Kate saw Lyra coming, and her expression changed to one of alarm. She shook her head, trying to wave Lyra away. But the Nalari continued. Her approach. Lyra reached the edge of the clearing and did something no Nalari would ever do. She deliberately drew attention to herself, stepping into the open and calling out in the hunter's language, using phrases she had heard them use. Her translator had analyzed enough of their speech to approximate their commands. The hunters turned, surprised by the sudden appearance of a second prey. Lyra used their moment of confusion to continue her approach. She held the communicator in front of her, its screen displaying. Nalari script. Kate understood immediately. What Lyra lacked in physical prowess, she made up for in intelligence. The Nalari had reprogrammed the communicator to display false information, making the hunters believe it contained something valuable enough to stop their pursuit. Lyra spoke again, using the hunters' language to offer a trade, the device for their lives. The hunters hesitated, clearly interested in the technology. A Nalari device was rare, valuable, the kind of prize that would bring status. While they were distracted, Kate had managed to circle behind them. The human now stood near a rock formation that provided cover. The rescue craft was getting closer, its engines audible now. The lead hunter approached Lyra, extending a hand for the device. She held it out, but as the hunter reached for it, she activated its final function. A blinding flash and electromagnetic pulse that temporarily disabled the hunter's weapons and sensors. Now Kate shouted, sprinting toward Lyra. The human grabbed her arm, pulling her toward the rock formation as the hunters recovered from their surprise. The rescue craft was descending into the clearing, its weapon systems targeting the hunters. Nalari were not warriors, but they protected their own. The hunters quickly realized they were outmatched. They retreated, disappearing into the forest as quickly as they had appeared. The craft landed, and the hatch opened, revealing 3 Nalari in environmental suits. They rushed forward, helping Lyra and Kate aboard. Once inside, the craft lifted off, immediately rising above the treetops. The Nalari medic examined Lyra first, finding her physically exhausted, but otherwise unharmed, then turned to Kate. The human sat calmly, allowing the examination, though she watched the unfamiliar technology with obvious interest. The lead rescuer approached Lyra, speaking in their native language. "We detected your ship's crash weeks ago, but interference in this sector delayed our response. The main vessel crashed, as you suspected, but most of the crew survived. They established a base on the northern continent." Relief flooded through Lyra. Her colleagues were alive, but her attention remained on Kate, the human who had saved her, who had taught her to survive, who had shown her a different way of seeing the universe. "The human requires medical attention," Lyra told the team captain. "Her leg is injured. She saved my life multiple times. I request she receive full honors and assistance." The captain studied Kate, with obvious curiosity. "This is a human," he asked. "The reports on this species did not indicate such capabilities." Lyra smiled. "Those reports were incomplete. Captain, I believe a significant re-evaluation is required." 3 cycles later on, the Nalari homeworld, Lyra stood before the High Council. She had completed her report on the Vexoria expedition, including detailed information about the fungal networks she had been sent to study. But the council was more interested in her companion. Kate stood beside, Lyra wearing clothes provided by the Nalari that fit poorly on her different physiology. The human had recovered from her injuries and spent the journey studying Nalari technology with fascination. The council had reviewed Lyra's report but seemed skeptical. The idea that a human, a member of a species previously classified as primitive, had survived alone on Vexoria, then saved a Nalari scientist, challenged their understanding of the universe. Humans were not previously considered for diplomatic. Relations Council leader Mick stated, "Their technological development is insufficient. With respect." Leader Lyra replied, "Technology is not the only measure of advancement. Kate survived using ingenuity, adaptability, and courage, qualities our species would benefit from cultivating. The hunters who pursued us had superior technology, but Kate outwitted them." The council murmured among themselves. Finally, Leader Mix spoke again. "What do you suggest?" Researcher Lyra, formal diplomatic relations. Lyra said without hesitation, "A cultural exchange program beginning with Kate as the first human representative on Nalari Prime. In return, we share appropriate technology to help humans advance." Kate stepped forward, addressing the council directly. "My people have much to learn from yours," she said. "But perhaps you have things to learn from us as well. Different perspectives, different strengths. Our species evolved on a dangerous, unpredictable world. We survived by adapting. That skill might complement your technological genius." The council was silent, considering this unprecedented suggestion. Finally, Leader Mix nodded. "We will establish preliminary diplomatic relations. A new classification for humanity will be considered based on demonstrated capabilities rather than technological advancement."